I try to see the writing on the wall when it comes to YouTube. They've always been good to us, but the bottom line is that, for every dollar that goes into that ecosystem, they make 55, or 45 cents, and you make 55. And that's great, but it has very specific limitations on what you can make. And that's just the way that it is. Now, if you can find success within that ecosystem, great. It's incredibly hard to do. I wish you best of luck. We're still trying to figure it out. But also, it left as creators, it left something to be desired. It was like, well, man, we've got this idea for this, we've got this idea for that, and we realized, hey, look, we have between the two channels, we've got over 10 million, almost 15 million subscribers. If we can convert a half of 1% of those people to be willing to pay us $4 a month, then it will literally be the same monetary value to the company as if we have an entire other channel that also has 6 million subscribers. Watching 5,000 videos of ours online is the same as just paying us 1 month of a subscription. Wow. And that significant.
Wow. That blows my mind.
It's true. Yeah. It's
so
incredible.
One viewer needs to view 5,000 videos in order to make you the $4 a month from that individual.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And so what that allows us to do then is not just, take money home. It's to say, hey, now we have this entire other revenue stream that's wholly independent, and we can utilize to tell these other stories that probably wouldn't perform well within the YouTube ecosystem.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your host, Ricky Ray Butler.
Ricky,
welcome to Creative Disruption. Jake, I got to finish my intro before you chime in.
Oh, sorry. All right. My bad.
I'm your host, Ricky Ray Butler, getting interrupted by another guest, Jake Watson from Corridor Digital. We're lucky to have Corridor Digital again. I am really good friends with the whole crew and with Jake, and we've worked together for almost a decade now, I think, across a variety of different projects. But Jake, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad to be back. It's been years, and we caught up the other day on some things, and man, I'm really glad to be back on here with you and to catch up and to get into all the new things that have developed and changed and evolved since I was last on.
Yeah, we talking about some of the new trends in media and with technology, from AI to the Metaverse to decentralization of platforms, as well as Web3. I'm excited to talk about all of it today. First and foremost, I want to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Metaverse and all the hype that surrounds it?
Oh man, we're going straight into Metaverse.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, look, it's there's some fun to it. I can see why people, but I can also see why people are so memey about it. With hey, let's poke a little fun at this. Because I think there's two types of crowds with it, right? There's people who are no, this is it, right? This is it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the people who are look, can we all just agree people probably don't want to live the majority of their life with a headset on?
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean,
yo, you got one right there
all the time.
But look, I mean, we've played around with VR and virtual production and all that stuff just as much as anybody else. And I can see the general goal, right? As it always has been. Remember when the sort of VR 3.0 came along in 2013, 2014, right? And it was the third attempt at making virtual realities a legitimate and viable industry, and it didn't die. So that's good, right? It's there's enough legs there where now people are okay, let's try to connect this all, because as it started, I don't know if you remember those. I mean, sure you do, but man, it was so chaotic. It was everything was split. And now this is just at least one company's attempt to try to bring it together a little bit, which, that'll help stabilize it, which is good.
Sure. Well, I think you provide a lot of credibility here because you co-founded a very successful gaming publishing company that was focused around VR. In addition to, getting 50 million views a month on Corridor Digital with a total of 2 billion views and 15 million subscribers across your different channels. You're a very busy person, but this is an area that you dabbled into. Are you still focused on this VR gaming company that you started? And tell me the name of the company again.
No problem. So it was in 2013, and my friend Brandon Lash and a buddy of ours, Alex Knoll, had gotten together and said, "Hey, And
this is Brandon Lash, that was the co-founder of Rocket Jump, right?
Yeah, co-founder of the Freddie W channel. Yeah, and then when Freddie went off and created Rocket Jump, him and Brandon split, and then the next thing that Brandon did was create Stress Level Zero, which is the video game company. Now, we didn't necessarily start as, hey, we're going to do VR. We're just going to do VR. That's the focus. We knew that we had the ability to make some games, and we knew that we had the ability to distribute them and make videos around them. So we said, well, let's give it a shot. And then as VR, that market really started to actually become viable, Brandon and Alex, man, they went in on it because it was kind of their chance to do something like unique. The position that we were in at the time was like, and that VR for a lot of indie developers were in was like, hey, this is a chance to do something new and to truly, the thing was, and Brandon, I credit Brandon for this, utilizing that format for its own purpose. And not because this happened with YouTube and this happened with VR too. When VR came out, it was a lot of people were just applying the traditional like mindset to it, like, how do we make a game and then just put it in VR? Not how do you make a VR game and how is that different from a traditional game? What can you do in VR that you cannot do in a traditional game? And how are you utilizing this? How do things feel when you pick them up? What's gravity like? What's the world around you? All these things that are more visceral in VR. How do you program and implement a gaming type and a structure around that rather than just being like, yeah, so you run up here, you pick up this gun, you shoot at the bad guys, end of story. So, and that's what Boneworks really like. It was the third game that Stress Level Zero came out with, but that one to me like really found that formula. And of course, they're working on new ones now. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about them or not, so I won't. They're still going. I exited that company in 2019, 2020, because like Corridor just,
exploded.
Yeah, like it was crazy when Brandon and Alex and I started Stress Level. Corridor was great. I was full time with them too, but I had a little bit of extra time, and so I was like, oh man, like this will be a fun chance to do something really new. And like, and it was, but man, as things sort of took off with Corridor 2018, 2019, it's just, I realized there was no way that I could do both. So I had to pick one. So I picked the one that I knew most about and the one that I felt like was most closest to my heart.
Well, and you were the brainchild behind the Corridor Crew channel, which has just exploded in addition to your live action channel.
Yeah,
narrative channel.
Yeah, I'll give a little background here because maybe I'm like moving at 100 miles an hour right now. So while I was doing all of that with Brandon and with Alex, and that was 2014, 2015, yada yada. Prior to that, in 2011, I joined up with Sam Gorski and Nico Peringer from Corridor Digital, who were it was just those two at the time, that's how we met. Because you were the first guy that was bringing us like deals on how to, here's a brand integration. What's a brand integration? I don't know. Do you know what it is? I don't know. That's like, that was, but you saw the vision in it and how it could be, taken into a legitimate format. And that's what I was saying about how people treated VR. Same people treated YouTube the same way. They said, "What is that? Is that TV? Is that a movie? Is that?"
Right.
It was no. It's YouTube. And
Right.
now,
well, early on, I used to say, like back in like 2008, 2009, that YouTube was and YouTubers were going to be the future of TV and TV channels and content. And what's so interesting, it's its own animal, but it's actually bigger than TV. You have Netflix that's in the US bigger than the top 5 cable networks combined. Well, Amazon Prime is there as well, but they're both just small fractions of the size and viewership of YouTube. And 82% of the viewership on YouTube are from creators. And if you just think about that and compare it to TV, and this is not including ByteDance or TikTok or Instagram or the other meta properties, this is just YouTube. And it's a giant compared to all of TV combined and streaming platforms.
Right. And I think you were one of the first people who saw that possibility with it. And we were just kids at the time. We were like, look, we saw that too, but no one, I think at that time we weren't quite able to conceptualize like the impact. And, I'm not trying to sugarcoat YouTube here. I mean, just like any huge tech company, there are things, right? But they've done an incredible job of keeping creators on the platform, making it as open as they possibly can to as many people, and then continuing that over time. And I don't think people and the average, it's easy to say like, oh, I was shadow banned, or, oh, I tried YouTube and it was impossible, or, oh, it's oversaturated, yada, yada, yada. The thing is I don't think people really realize how hard it is to do what they've done. And there's you got your TikToks, you got your Instagrams, you got your other platforms, but no one's been able to quite monetize it like YouTube has, and to create the consistency and the quality of shows that are coming out on that platform. No one's been able to do that.
Well, it seems like everything in the creator economy at one point or another is pointing at YouTube. It's continuing to grow. They have the best rev share and compensation. Rev share model with creators and being able to monetize their content in a much more turnkey way, where you have all these funds at all these other platforms, and right now it's really cute, but the truth is, it's not making a lot of creators a lot of money.
Yeah,
and they can't sustain their lives and their careers with that. And until these other platforms, where TikTok is very interesting to me, because when it comes to discoverability, and when it comes to searchability, that's probably YouTube's biggest competitor. However, creators are not monetizing there yet. And of course, if you look at Douyin in China, there's going to probably be things that have been very successful over there with live streaming and live shoppable content that will probably be applied over here. Yeah. But when it comes down to like sharing ad revenue, no one else holds a candle to YouTube. And you're right, it's difficult. They're the world's largest or second largest search engine. They're the place where people go to learn things, but also it's a place where creators are empowered to make money.
Right. Yeah. So that to take it back to your initial comment about the Corridor Crew channel, like that. So that was why we did that. Not just because it was a better revenue model for YouTube, but also that it fit the whole ecosystem better. So just to go back to the origin story here, 2012, Sam, Nico, myself, we're out there, we're making viral short films. This was this is when you could game the YouTube homepage. This is when things on YouTube got shared on email lists and on Facebook and on like, Reddit, and like things weren't so insular when it came to each individual platform. It was like, oh yeah, a viral video would truly be viral across multiple different platforms. And that was interesting. And then obviously like everybody else saw the potential of that. So then they started going, oh, well, let's just make that go viral on our platform, and we'll have our own thing. So that's happened. But that was where we were at 2011, 2012, all the way up until about 2015. And in 2014, I don't know if you remember this, I'm sure you do, YouTube shifted from a view-based revenue model to a minutes-based revenue model, which was very smart for the overall health of the platform, but was very hard for Corridor Digital because we specialized in making 2 to 3 minute, like, viral, no context, here's just some crazy story with a bunch of images like slapped together. You've never seen anything like this before.
A lot of it was focused around gaming and making gaming content come to life. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I remember my first time coming across Corridor Digital, I was like, whoa, this is, I mean, there's nothing else out there like this.
Yeah, we, you know, and this is credit to Sam and Nico being the creative guys they are to sort of go with something they were passionate about and be sort of ahead of the curve enough with their technical abilities to be able to do some of the first live action video game type stuff on the internet, which is crazy to think about now. At the time, it didn't seem like anything special. But looking back on it, it was like, yeah, we did the first, between us and Freddie and a handful of others. I mean, like 5 other channels, maybe. We were doing the first video game in real life, anything, you know? And so people really liked that, and it worked out great for a number of years. And we were able to make, you know, a living at it as mid 20 somethings. And then, but I saw the shift in the wind, you know, a shift in the wind foretells a change in the weather. And I saw that in 2014. I was like, oh man, this is really going to affect us in the long run. And my thought was like, if we just keep doing these types of videos, in 2.5 years, 3 years, we're going to be bankrupt. It doesn't matter how many views they get. I was sure. And sure enough, you know, we would have. And Corridor still gets the same revenue. It still brings in the same revenue today that it did then, that channel. But that's only because the revenue has increased on the platform, not because, you know, like, that model is successful. It was successful at capturing viewership, but then turning it into long-term viewers, fans of the channel, that sort of thing, it didn't do anything like that.
And so because of the shift of what, you know, what changed on YouTube and how they changed their algorithms to, you know, provide new incentives, that's what opened the door to the Corridor Crew channel, which now has over 5 million subscribers, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's at 5.5. Corridor, the original one's at 9.5. So hopefully we'll get that diamond button within the next 12 months. So, you know, we said, hey, what can we do that can not only continue to allow us, because our whole focus wasn't just on like, hey, let's make viral videos. You know, our focus was on, let's utilize technology, software and hardware technology, to allow us to go from things to go from idea to within 4 frames or within 4 corners of a frame as quickly and efficiently as possible. How do we do that? Because, you know, it's like, hey, I see this idea in my head. It looks like this. It feels like this. You know, it's shot like this. How do you do that? Well, the more technology you have at your disposal and the more you understand what it can give you, the quicker you can get from point A to point B. And so we didn't want to lose that about it. But we knew that if we just kept making viral videos, the problems with it was not zero, but like significantly less fan retention. And I'm talking about returning viewership, significantly less minutes watched, right? And then maybe somebody saw your video somewhere, but they don't know who you are. You know, they don't know what you're, they're not like, oh yes, that was by those guys because I saw this and because I saw that. So you're doing all this work. You're working 5 times harder than everybody else because you have to produce more videos in a shorter amount of time. They have to be more visually striking and all that stuff. And you're working against yourself. Like for every video that you produce, you're doing 5 times more work. It's 10 times more work to do a short film than it is to do a vlog. I would say 100 times more in a lot of circumstances. And yet what you're getting out of it as a production business, as a company, is like you're taking steps backwards. And I just saw this
it looked like
happening.
a Hollywood production. I mean, I've been on a lot of different sets and a lot of different productions, and seeing you all in action is to the exact same caliber, especially when you're, doing one of those live action scenes. And
and we love doing stuff like that, by the way.
Mhm.
We're still doing stuff like that. We have to be very specific with when and how we do it, because it's a lot more expensive to do things that way. But I'll get to that in the chronology of this. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Corridor Crew. We saw it, and so we had these two guys, Ren, who most people who know Corridor Digital, I'm sure know. And then this guy Carmichael. And I was Ren was, sort of co-creator, co-collaborator, and Carmichael was there to shoot and edit, like whatever we were working on, BTS stuff. So I'm sitting there one day in the studio and I'm watching them just talk, right? And they're joking about something, and they're like, as my producer brain, I was like, these guys are wasting time, and I'm sitting there watching them, and I'm like, wait a minute.
So everyone just understands like these nuances here. Jake, is like the head producer of all the content with Corridor Digital. You're also one of the owners of Corridor Digital.
Yeah.
And when I've worked with all of you, you're the one that's down to business. You're very focused, and you make sure that we're all hitting our deadlines. And you're whipping everyone into shape. And so this is awesome to hear this story from your perspective.
Yeah, like on set, I'm the assistant director who's sort of like the crew manager, and in production, I'm the head of production. So I'm sitting there watching these guys, thinking like, man, how much money are they wasting by how much they talk and screw off every day? And then I thought, wait a minute, Carmichael's here to shoot and edit videos. Why doesn't he just shoot and edit the stupid fun stuff we do and the problems that we have in our creative journey, and we make a story about that goes alongside the regular videos that we're already making? And that was how the vlog started. It was well, look, we're making a video. It's called Real GTA. It's a viral video. We had a third person camera rig. Sam followed me around Los Angeles, and it was set up to look just like GTA 5. The video went super viral. It's got like 75 million views. I don't know how many at this point. But then all we were doing was releasing just that video. And then what we started doing was documenting, like, okay, we're in the middle of post-production on this video, or we're in the middle of pre-production on this video. We got to get a car. Where are we going to get a car from? Okay, we got to do this type of stunt. Okay, we're going to film at the Griffith Observatory with no permits. What's that going to be like? How do we do all that? And then in the middle of it all was kind of this overarching narrative of just like us as creators and what that was like. And I realized how it didn't seem unique to us at the time, but I realized how unique it was. It was like this small batch production house in the middle of Los Angeles, like in this sort of grimy neighborhood, like trying to pump out viral videos and make a living at it. And people, the first episodes, like, in terms of what we get now, like abysmal views, 30,000 views, 40,000 views. I remember when we got 60,000 views on 2 episodes in a row, and we were jumping for joy. And then we had this bet with Carmichael where we're like, okay, he's like, we need a new camera, guys. He was filming with this old camera that he had busted the lens on it, and he couldn't even rack it to adjust the focus, or to adjust the lens length. So everything was in the same focal length and everything like that. So we're like, okay, if you get 100,000 views, 2 videos in a row, we'll buy you a new camera. And so that became the challenge. And then we made that as part of the story, as part of the story of like what we were doing and how we were doing it. And it was just a lot of small learning experiments over the years. And I look at some of the thumbnails and some of the marketing that we had back then, and some of the way that the stories were cut, and we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we had a base knowledge, but we would never do some of that stuff now. And some of that's endearing and charming to look back on it, but only because we improved it over time.
So it started as like a BTS, like behind the scenes channel vlog, but then you've started series since then.
Yes.
where people like Seth Rogen has come on as like, a guest to comment on content, correct?
Right. It's been wild. I mean, to even compare it to what it was in 2016 to what it is now in 2022 is like, it's just not fair. It was called the Sam and Nico show or the Sam and Nico vlog because again, the focus was just pretty much on those two. But as we got better at it, and that was the other thing we realized was like, look at the difference in monetization. We get paid $7 where we used to get paid $3, and we can do a brand integration here when before that Ricky and I would have fought about that for 2 weeks about this talking point. Now I'll just throw it in there.
Well, I remember having that conversation actually at the Sundance Film Festival.
Yeah,
when you were talking about monetizing Corridor Crew versus Corridor Digital.
Yes,
and I told you, I said it will be way easier, and we will not have to go as much back and forth, with advertisers or brands on creative because you pump out a lot and it's a lot less risky in when it comes to requests, etc.
Exactly. It just fits the format better. Because you're not trying to do this isolated 100 million view out of context viral video that somebody is so-and-so sent you and you have no idea who made it or where it came from. Now it's a show. Mm-hmm. And so that was it, in terms of revenue, it was just like, whoa, all of a sudden we can put a little bit money into this idea that we didn't have before. We have a little bit more leeway to do this. We can hire this extra person that we needed to do this. All those things started happening.
And and I would probably argue with most brands, it'd probably give them a better ROI. And
right.
Because you have an audience that maybe don't have as many subscribers, but you have a lot more consistency. And I'd probably argue that you have a lot more loyalty because it's all created around you and all of your personalities.
100%. And that's the other thing is it's not about like, trying to just get, hey, let's just get a high dollar amount for a brand integration. And then, whatever. It's like, how much better is it when you have a brand that loves what you're doing and can return and gets that good ROI that's good for them? And then they're not all in your sauce trying to mess with the mix. It's just like, hey, look, these guys work. We get a great ROI. Mm-hmm. This is the price. We're good. It's good for us. It's good for them. It helps our show keep going. They get sales out of it and everyone wins.
Viral videos are way more risky when it comes to ROI.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you don't know when
tens of millions of views. There's a good chance there's not as much impact as a vlog with a couple 100,000 views.
Right, exactly. And it's funny. We had this one. Our most viral video ever is called "Primitive Technology Crafting a Zombie Meat Harvester," and it's actually a brand integration for a mobile game, but it's very lightly branded. And that video went viral in Southeast Asia, and but because the CPMs are so much lower there, mm-hmm. It's like this video has 68 million views on YouTube.
Wow!
And it's an 8-minute video, and its lifetime total AdSense made is $35,000. Which is like, $35,000 is nothing to sneeze at. But when you compare it to like 168 million views on the most monetizable platform in social media, and that's all it's bringing in, it's like, whoa, that gives you an idea of what we were setting ourselves up against. So
well, thank goodness it was a brand deal, right?
Right, because we've never been able to make it in the first place if we didn't have a brand behind it.
It would have been way too expensive with little return.
Right.
And again, you're right. $35,000 is a lot of money, but just for the audience and those tuning in, some of these videos cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have Mr. Beast that spent over $4 million on the Squid Games video, and so it's very expensive to have very high quality productions and having a lot of people coming on and helping with the set, etc.
Yeah, we're doing for reference there. We're doing a quick 4-part series that's going to get released later this year. And when we went into it, I was like, oh, what's this going to cost? It's like, man, we could probably do it for like 50,000, 60,000. And now it's like 125,000. That's what it's going to cost. And, and we're only halfway through shooting it, not to mention we got to go through posts and all that stuff too. So, things can get very expensive very quickly, especially if you're working with guys who are operating and functioning at the top of their creative career and creative capacity, whatever it might be.
But anyway. Thanks for going into that. I mean, thanks for the transparency and candor of like production costs, etc. I don't think probably a lot of your viewers realize like what goes into this, and most of YouTube viewers out there today. I wanted to go back just a little bit back to the metaverse topic. Yeah, I want to stress test some things by you on what you think is hype versus real.
Okay, and let me disclaimer this: I'm not like a deep metaverse guy, but I'll do my best to answer what I can.
Well, look, I like to make you sweat and like throw you curveballs. So let's see how you do here.
All right, let's do it.
Jake, what are your thoughts on real estate in the metaverse? I know your background is like in VR and VR gaming, publishing, etc.
Right.
When it comes to this world, but there's a lot of predictions that this is going to be a way for people to really connect and engage with each other on a whole other level virtually.
Right.
But I personally think there's a lot of things that are exciting.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be consumer led, and that's something that I think people forget. Yeah. I get really nervous when there's a lot of theories out there and that there's a bunch of brand executives way more excited than actual, users or consumers about what the future will bring with the metaverse. And I think Zuckerberg probably brought a lot of false confidence to, many people on what to expect just because of the resources Meta or Facebook, have to invest in this category. But there's certain things where I'm like, okay, this is going to be exciting. But then there's other things that I feel like sound like snake oil or full of hype. And when I see on LinkedIn people saying that they're metaverse experts, I hide my freaking wallet because this is just a vicious cycle that just keeps happening. Whenever there's a new topic or a new trend, there's always people jumping in and trying to monetize it when they have this very shallow understanding with what's actually happening. And so my question to you, what are your thoughts on people buying and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on metaverse real estate?
Well, I mean, this is older than the gold rush. This sort of like, this is America. Like that is how we've built this country, which is crazy. But that idea of like, hey, there's something here. There's something that might be here. There's potential value of a great potential value. And then you get people from all walks of life, all corners of the globe, right? Like that is like how it works. And that was the same thing with VR. We're seeing the same thing now with the metaverse.
Maybe there is an opportunity for people to have no entertainment or media or content experience to come in and see that the game is leveled a little bit.
Yeah, and there'll be a niche for everybody, I think. And just as digital technology specifically evolves, like there'll be a niche for everybody, depending on where and what it is. I think for sure. Now, is it as hyped as the hype, is right now? Like, no. Let's be real. But my producer brain says, okay, if buying your specific question, buying real estate in the metaverse, to me it's like, well, how much are you getting and how cheap are you getting it for? And those are really the only two questions that matter, because even if you have no interest in it, if you can get enough of it for cheap enough, then just like any real estate, like it will have some value somewhere to somebody. Now, I think a lot of people, what's happening on like you hear these stories, somebody paid X amount for this fake real estate. Snoop Dogg's buying real estate in the metaverse. What do we do? Like what is that really? I mean, last year at this exact same time, it was NFTs. It was NFTs. It was like, yo, these are going to be the thing. These are going to change the way that creators create forever, And look, what was it? You had this cryptocurrency explosion that began, late 2020 because the pandemic hit and everyone was like, oh, what do we, let's invest in crypto because that's digital currency. That'll be valuable. And then it was like, it took off. Frickin' Ethereum hit 4,500 and all this crazy stuff. And then, it came back down. And it's sort of leveled out since then. But what happened is a lot of people that didn't have a lot of money before became very rich with cryptocurrency. Like even if it was like, somebody told me, my brother's friend told me about this. I bought, $1,000 worth of ADA when it was 52 cents, and well, it's almost back down there now, but and I sold it when it was, I sold it when it was at $3. Whoa, my God, amazing. What do I do with this now? It's like, well, I might as well just take the next bet. So I'll take the NFT bet. I'll take the metaverse real estate bet. I do think that there's a significant portion of that market that's actually purchasing those things that is that. And I think there's a sliding scale of how far you get from that, and new money coming in and people that might be interested in the technology from another angle. But yeah, I mean, buyer beware, my friend, that is what it is.
If you feel emotionally super excited about putting your money into something and there's limited data or limited modeling, you just really want to just take a double take and really look into that and make sure that you know what you're doing, or hold back. And if it's something that's very valuable, it's going to stabilize and continue to grow over time. So for me, when it comes to the metaverse real estate, I am not bullish on that. I think
I never know what you're going to be bullish on, Ricky. That's what I love about you.
Hey, I got into blockchain and crypto early on. I was very lucky to have a great return on all that. But
yeah,
I made a lot of mistakes in that area too, and I'd be the first one to say that I am not an expert in investing in these new technologies. Neither. I've been very lucky, and I call it what it is.
Yeah.
Now, my whole issue with all this hype around the metaverse is that a lot of people seem to just have very surface level understanding on what it is.
Yeah.
And a
also
lot of it's
true.
based on theories and people feeling futuristic. And the truth is, Minecraft figured this out a long time ago. I think you can say that Minecraft is a game within the metaverse, that Roblox, you could call that metaverse, Fortnite. And this is something that's been happening for years when it comes to gaming. And so one thing that I'm bullish in is that gaming will become easier and VR will become less clunky. I know I pulled these up earlier, my Oculus. Oculus is great. It has a great design. But you know what? It's still too clunky for me. One day you'll have a smaller pair of glasses, maybe like a really small earpiece like this one, AirPod Pro, and you put your phone in the middle of the room and you empty out the room and you can play a live action game or sport with your friends around the world. And that is obviously going to come. It's going to become much easier and much less experience for consumers to buy into and engage with. Is it going to be the future of dating? Is it going to be the future of relationships? I sure hope not. I think as humans, we really benefit from a variety of senses, not just, visual and audio.
Right.
And I have hope for humanity that, we can return back to nature and enjoy other aspects of life rather than just entertainment. Right. But it is going to be a big part of our future, but there's a lot of hype. And, where I make decisions is usually based off of data and based off of what's the distribution, how many users are using it. Is it something that
Those
is
are the
user-friendly? Yeah.
That's the core of it. And that was the thing we ran into with VR as well. It was like, well, we have X amount of attachment rate to all headsets out there, but how many headsets are out there? Because when you're projecting out how much you can do with the revenue for the company, it's like, well, if there's only 2 million headsets, then even at 100% attachment rate, what is your what is the max amount of money that you could possibly make with this product? And if you're like betting way beyond that, it's like, whoa, you might want to, you might want to look at that, because that's fundamental data that's going to affect the overall market. And I agree with you. Like that's why I don't want to dog it too hard, right? Because there is some intangible and I think inherent value that will become tangible in that. But I think it's a lot like just more of the evolution of the internet than it is like something else entirely. Like,
right.
You think about the way that the internet was spoken of and perceived 10, 15, 20 years ago. It was this other thing, right? You remember when you had to go on and you had to type www? I mean, we still know how to do it inherently, sure. Right? But why was it that we had to describe the URL with such like specificity? Because it was this other thing that existed almost outside of your life. It's like, no, I don't live in a car. I get in a car and then I'm on the road, But what it's become now is, we're using internet right now. We use it in our phones, in our watches, in our applications. We use it when we book our hairdressing or, like our barber appointments, or when we check our kids in at school, or when we make a purchase for something that we need. We don't even think about the actual internet functioning in those ways, and I think, and this is me obviously speculating, but like as technology, specifically hardware technology, gets better, allowing that much data to be piped into different hardware devices that quickly and efficiently, which has always been the limitation. I mean, that was the limitation with early video. The better that those data pipes get, and the more efficient that those devices get at receiving that data, like the more viable it'll be to be like, oh yeah, I've got this cool little, hold on, let me put my little headset on here, and there's a little game, or there's a little environment that's already created that has a little community and economy around it. So let's just do this thing over here, and then I'm going to do this thing over here, just like we would do when we pull up an application on our phone. I think that's probably a more realistic eventual outcome.
No, I think when it comes to film and when it comes to games, it's going to have so many benefits. And also when connecting with people, it will level up the virtual experience of building relationships and engaging and communicating.
Yeah.
It will also open up the gateways of different ways of gathering data around humans to better customize their experience.
Yeah.
I would say there's limitations with how we consume TV or series or social media content. There's limitations.
I mean, Nielsen
when
ratings,
it comes to
right?
biodata, but there will be one day where you have a headpiece on. It's monitoring your heart rate. It's monitoring your brain waves, and it's going to see if you like the content or not, and evolve it based on what you like.
That sounds very dystopian to me.
Yeah, and to be honest,
I personally don't want that.
That's one of those things that can be really scary. But it's one of those things where we want to be entertained.
Yeah.
We want to have a better experience. And of course, it'd be extremely unethical to do it without permission or without, letting people know that they're, opting in or opting in.
Yeah.
But I think that is going to be a new frontier of entertainment, where the entertainment, whether it's visual or animation or film or a game, will evolve to how you're reacting to it and based on what you want out of it.
No, and you're right, and I think the reason that's like sort of gut check scary to me and a lot of other people, but I think as a content creator, and as a a producer, my ultimate responsibility and role in that world is to find a way to tell stories that still have meaning and aren't just, hey, we saw you liked this, so we gave you another dopamine hit of the same thing, and to just keep you in the game for longer, like that to me has always been a drawback of big tech and social media, is that it's all about it's all about that final result, like how do we keep people here longer? How do we suck more life out of them? And I feel like one of my job
issues too.
Yeah. Right.
You know how government's making a lot of this stuff that Meta's doing and digital marketers doing, where they cross privacy lines. There's a lot of boundaries
Right.
being crossed that are not okay, that people don't know about, and there's policies being written up against that type of targeting.
Yeah.
However, as I mentioned earlier, we want to be entertained, and so maybe that means is going to a platform or a content creator that you trust, giving more access into your life or into your data,
Right.
because you trust that it's a community or it's a platform or content that has your best interest in mind, and you want to be much more connected to. And so I think that actually I want to talk about NFTs in a little bit as well, because you're very humble, Jake, and you're one of you and Nico and Sam are people that are creators that have been in it for a long time, that I also really respect your business acumen.
Oh,
and you've all made good investments, and you've been successful, not just with VR gaming, which is a part of the metaverse, but also when it comes to NFTs. And so we'll talk more about that and your friend Beeple as well. Which I know you have done co-launch of content together. But I want to first talk about the Corridor Digital platform. So many that are listening know that one of the projects that I have ownership in is called The Chosen, which has been a very successful faith-based series that has broken a lot of records when it comes to crowdfunding, but also when it comes to viewership of a series that has its own platform. And I personally think right now we're seeing the tip of the iceberg of this happening at a much more accelerated rate. Going back to the metaverse, I don't think Meta or Facebook is going to own this world. You're going to have hardware companies that come into play, and you're going to have creators that are going to figure out how to do this on their own when it comes to their own platforms. And so I think we're now seeing at the very beginning stages of this, where we're seeing the pioneers rise on who's like really paving the way. And I would say you and Corridor Digital are one of those creators and companies that have figured this out. Can you tell me a little bit about Corridor.com and what impact that has made for you and your users, and then how well does it monetize compared to what you do on YouTube or other platforms?
Yeah, thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it. I mean, it is I think it's something we don't quite get out there enough. So 2 years ago, we started creating this little platform called CorridorDigital.com, and it was like, hey, this guy hit us up and said, hey, I'm an SVOD developer. Like, why don't you guys have your own platform? And I said, well, they're incredibly expensive to create. And we're just not quite situated. And he's like, and I was like, do you know how to build one?
And one thing to note here, a couple of years ago when you, Sam, and Nico were all on here, you were talking about doomsday scenarios and on figuring and trying to, I think at that time you're brainstorming on what you should do to make sure if something horrible happens, how you can stay engaged with your audience.
Make videos.
And still make videos. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming this, goes into that direction.
Oh, totally. It was like, I try to see the writing on the wall when it comes to YouTube. They've always been good to us, but the bottom line is that, for every dollar that goes into that ecosystem, they make 55, or 45 cents, and you make 55. And that's great, but it has very specific limitations on what you can make. And that's just the way that it is. Now, if you can find success within that ecosystem, great. It's incredibly hard to do. I wish you best of luck. We're still trying to figure it out. But also it left as creators, it left something to be desired. It was like, well, man, we've got this idea for this, we've got this idea for that. And we realized, hey, look, we have between the two channels, we've got over 10 million, 15 million subscribers. If we can convert a half of 1% of those people to be willing to pay us $4 a month, then it will literally be the same monetary value to the company as if we have an entire other channel that also has 6 million subscribers. And paying us.
Wow, that's amazing. And so did it turn out, being the case?
Yeah, I mean, we had to spend more money, obviously, to maintain the site, to produce new content for the site, all that stuff. But it's the basic monetary idea is, hey, watching 5,000 videos of ours online is the same as just paying us 1 month of a subscription. And that significant,
that blows my mind.
It's true. Yeah. It's
so
incredible.
One viewer needs to view 5,000 videos, or in order to make you the $4 a month from that individual.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And so what that allows us to do then is not just, take money home. It's to say, hey, now we have this entire other revenue stream that's wholly independent, and we can utilize to tell these other stories that probably wouldn't perform well within the YouTube ecosystem.
Like Son of a Dungeon, correct?
Yes, exactly. Like this. So this show, the first season, we thought it was going to cost us like $25,000 to make the first season. It ended up being like $150,000. It just was like, but the thing was, man, it was so like freeing for us to just do this wholly new format. I mean, I know the guys had done D&D shows on Node in the past. They'd done 2 or 3 of them, but to like really dive in, and then to dive in with costumes, and then to shoot. We shot 4 days. We had 24 hours of raw footage. We cut it down to 8 hours to then take it and then do visual effects, to do music, to do prop designs, to do visual drawings that this incredible artist that we have named Griffin made all these incredible, just hand-drawn pieces for the thing. Bunch of renders in Unreal Engine and using 3D and green screen compositing and visualizing and trying with the goal of the show being, we love playing Dungeons and Dragons. We have a ton of fun with it as friends. How can we give viewers that same experience? How close can we get? And this is something where like eventually a virtual reality environment would be super useful for this storytelling. And that's the stuff that interests me, is it's like, how do we utilize that technology to allow us to better tell a story? People want to be entertained, right? But like, how do we do that? And so to me, that's like where those two things connect, is like, because now we're on season 2. Season 1 was way more successful than we thought it was going to be, honestly.
So what percentage of your subscribers ended up joining? Was it 0.5%, full percent?
So we had a huge influx of subs when this show came out. It more than paid for the show. Some of them stayed, some of them didn't. But bottom line is, we've been able to take our baseline subscriber base when it comes to the overall website. And now that's bringing in more per month than it was before that show was released, which now is allowing us to do a second season of that show. Nico and I are trying to figure out how to do an action movie with all these stunt guys that we've been working with. Oh man, everyone's so like, we've got a great network of stunt people right now, and they're all just so eager to just dig in on something that's just like independent and fun. And so we're trying to put that together. That would have never been possible before the site. It would have been a pipe dream. And now with season 2 of Son of a Dungeon, we're taking all the lessons that we learned from season 1, and we're trying to improve the visual quality, the storytelling, the editing, the music, like building out this library so that each season just gets a little bit better, understanding the technology we had, the mistakes, the things that worked, the overall story. So that, because this show, I mean, we could potentially continue to make this show for as long as people will want to watch it. And as we go into the future here, the next 10 years, like the technology that we were just talking about is going to become more and more easily accessible. You're going to be able to plug it into more and more different platforms. And if we can access that and get those stories on there, then it's just like, it's just more people who can access the story. And we try to make sure that like the stories themselves, they've got ups and downs. It's a ride, it's 9 hours of narrative, season 2. So it's a full blown narrative.
Wow. That's amazing. And you've built up, subscribers just to basically sustain and making sure that you can afford making this other content, and to do it in a way that you want to do it, not necessarily in a way that's going to be most effective on with the algorithms.
Yeah. That's the other nice thing about it is like, we have all these lessons. I'm very thankful for those algorithms because they teach us a lot. I'm saying I'm scared of knowing heartbeat and stuff like that, but honestly, the data is kind of like that already.
Yeah.
And that data has taught us so much about how to be a better storyteller. And I think, to me, as the producer, as a creator, that's the real value of that data. Is this like, well, you understand that when this happened, people reacted like this, or there was higher retention here, or this video with this title and thumbnail seemed to do better than this one. Why is that? And it's like, well, this hits on more emotional drama. This one has this. This one has this payoff. This one has this sort of unique set of circumstances that aren't being presented right now. Like, any one of those things could matter. And the more data you have, obviously, the better the more effective you can be as a storyteller.
No, that's great. And so this empowers you to get more data and cater it to, because in this case, you own the platform. You own
right now we actually have less data because it's really hard to build those tools, and we're working on it with a tiny team. But yeah.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of companies that surface that are going to empower creators to have their own platforms and to own their own data. And I think there's going to be a lot of leveling up, and there's going to be a lot of altruism when it comes to building tech for future, for the future in media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so thank you for sharing that. It's probably one of those things that's going to inspire a lot of creators to want to launch their own platform and then figure out how to monetize it so they can invest in data scientists and engineers. And in product people to make sure that, just like with Meta or YouTube, it continually evolves to what your audience wants. But it gives you the control to really connect with your audience and own that data. And again, to build that type of infrastructure, I totally understand. I have a pretty large tech team, and investing in roadmaps and in technology to make sure that you're not only gathering data, but you have a really good user experience. That can be very complicated.
I am learning all of that right now. We should sit down aside from this podcast, and you can just teach me maybe a bit more, because I am like I'm a young fox in the woods right now. I don't know where I am. I'm just trying to figure stuff out as I go. And thankfully, because the thing is our business model has always been like, well, are you making more than what it's costing you, right? Like, very fundamental economics 101. And when it comes to these types of add-ons, with respect to like data science and things like that, it's oftentimes very intangible, and the people are very expensive. So, as a small business, we're like, man, we have to be very selective about when we pick and choose those types of people to come on, because
what I'll do is I'll definitely schedule a meeting with our data insights and AI teams.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
We can do a brainstorm of where you are now and where you can go in the future. Anything we can do to help empower the creator economy and creators, we want to do that. And this actually would give us context of how it can be helpful if there ends up being a huge decentralization of platforms in the future. And so we should definitely talk. Let's talk about NFTs. Can you just give a quick summary or story of what happened with your team and Beeple? Because I believe it's Ren. I saw Ren on a Beeple NFT, I think a year ago.
It's Peter. Peter is on a Beeple NFT. So what happened? Well, 2019, Sam and Nico were like, hey, there's this guy we've been chatting with on Instagram or whatever. He's he does one render a day, and he's been doing one render a day for the last 12 years. And he wants to come in and just, crack jokes, and we'll do a render together. And I was like, dude, that sounds amazing. I don't know who this guy is, but I got to meet him. And he comes in, and he's this you get why they call him Beeple, because he talks, he puts sailors to shame with his with his language. But he was a hilarious guy. I think he gets, I don't think people often know how to understand him, but he's actually a wonderful person. He's hilarious to be around. He's super nice. He's given a ton of money to charity. And so he came in, we did this thing with him. It was great. We challenged him to a render challenge. He smoked us. We were making fun of everyone was making fun of each other the whole way along. And then, boom, that was the experience. And it was like, people, fun meeting you. And then a year later, he hits us up and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing these NFTs. I just put one out there, and over the weekend, it sold $3 million of
Wow.
Ethereum." And we're like, what? And obviously his circumstances for where he is as an artist and like all that stuff that really matters when it comes to like high value art. He checks all those boxes, right? Like, been doing this independent thing for years, like totally original style, very cutting edge, and risque.
Sure.
Like he'll do anything. He'll do art about anything, and I do mean anything. And so people like that, right? Because it's like very raw and visceral and real, and it's like beautiful, and it's like, that is his thing. He's been dedicated to it for 12 years. So he's like, "Yeah, let me come in again. We'll do another piece." And we're like, "Okay, let's do another render." But he had just done the like $3.5 million weekend that was like ended up being like the small one, until he did the Christie's auction, which everyone knows him for, which is the $69 million sale at the Christie's auction of his first 5,000 images from his 12 years of daily renders. But we didn't want to take advantage of that. We said, like, "Look, man, like, we want to do a piece with you, but we know that if we do a piece with you and then it sells, it's probably going to sell for a ton right now. It just, like, I don't know, it seems like we're riding on your name, and like what we want to do is just like do something cool together right now. So let's donate the money to charity, and we'll just have fun with it, and we'll do it together." And that's exactly what we did. We split up into teams. It was a render challenge. Everyone had like 2 hours to do it before they had to like pull the USB from the computer and throw it in the suitcase. And him and Peter did this really funny render called the goat, where it's a goat and it's got Beeple's face, and then Peter's on top of it with like a miniature ape like Peter is on top of it with the reins and stuff. And he put the little Corridor Digital logo in it, and man, it did great. It sold for 333 Ethereum.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So what did that equal to at the time?
Well, at the time it equaled like 500 plus thousand. If we would have held it for another month, it would have been double that. But that
all went to charity.
Right. Yes, exactly. So we sold it off, and we donated it to Direct Relief.
Wow. And then, I mean, have you and the team focused on NFTs since?
Yeah, we've done a few others. We did an anime batch of all the like anime pieces that we've done with like little baseball cards, 3D baseball cards. That was really fun. And then we did one called The Viral Decade. That one did pretty well. Each artist in our studio did like an homage to their favorite viral piece that we've done out of the last 10 years. And obviously those ones, we were doing for sale, and that did bring in decent money to the business. And not only that, but it was like a great way for some people to that we might not have otherwise engaged with to like be amped about what we're doing, and for us to like really reconceptualize our output and say like, okay, yeah, we know, the video world is one thing, but the NFT world is totally different. How do we make something that's cool? And that's an artistic challenge, which is fun. Is it's like, how do you make something that's going to connect with people in this world? Because, as an artist, you always want to be making sure you're not getting too comfortable. And I believe in setting up our production around that idea as well, and making sure that like we're constantly finding a new way to like learn something new, learn a new platform, learn a new distribution. So we've done those, and we're actually trying to set up another one for the end of April here with
great.
Maker's Place. Yeah.
So
just having fun with it now.
To be a part of your business plan and what you all do.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then we're also trying to figure out the best way to accept crypto as a form of
Mhm.
payment on Corridor Digital. So we're very much like, like, hey, look, this is a useful technology that's now available to you. How are you utilizing it? And so to me, I'm more of like, I'm trying to pick and choose like where things have stabilized a bit.
Mhm.
Um, so that we can utilize it. But there's also a little fun as long as you're playing in the early space and not like betting your company on the future space. Big difference.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of experimentation that needs to happen as you innovate, and
Yeah.
you can't ever put all your eggs in one basket. I think it's a really good that's a good principle in investing as well as in building a business. Make sure you have enough data to
Yes.
make it in an accurate, a calculated decision.
Right.
Where I get excited around NFTs, we talked about, quarterdigital.com or
Yeah.
The Chosen, where we did a
Yeah.
crowdfund and we did a public, filing with the SEC. That could have been, one of those things that could have been way easier if, we could have fractioned an NFT or, created a
Right.
series where, 16,000 or 100,000 people could invest in that same series. And as that series becomes successful, everyone benefits that has ownership in it.
I'm amped about that
Mhm.
possibility. Like, yeah, the we were approached. I don't know if I could say who, but we were approached to talk about like a new way to fraction and offer videos,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really excited that that technology is there because I could see it being really cool for a crowd funded
Mm-hmm.
piece of content to
But
come
but
out.
but is it still a gray area? Now I ask you this, and we haven't been able to go into your background, Jake. But Jake, you're a lawyer, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
went to
of
law
lesser
school.
known talents. Yeah,
It's one of your lesser known talents, but it makes. I mean, it's really helped Corridor Digital a ton with
yeah,
you. Not just being the people manager, but also making sure that everything that you're doing, is the right way, and you do all the legalese.
yeah.
I mean, do you see that? I mean, this new technology that you're talking about being a gray area with the SEC, because it seems like the SEC is against fractioning of, I guess, artistic assets through blockchain.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they really get a say, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, we're gonna do it before they even know how to and again, it's the whole thing, like, the it's a funny thing
I
with the
guess you could
law.
do it through DAOs too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny thing with the law in that it's always trying to keep up,
Mhm.
because the law is structured around human ideas
Yeah.
and human culture, and there are certain like ancient laws that exist
Mhm.
before humans could even speak and things like
Mhm.
that, but like eh, you know um the technology is there,
Yeah.
and so if people are able to do it and a group of people can get together and say like, look, let's blockchain this out, let's fraction this out. You get minutes here to here, you get minutes here to here. Together we collectively own this asset. If somebody wants to purchase this asset from us in this medium that we've chosen to have be the value medium,
Mhm.
then you can do that. And they're working on it right now. I was telling you about the K2s and K3 filings and things like that. There's some new tax
Mhm.
filings this year where you're supposed to report how much cryptocurrency you have and are
Mhm.
holding, even though it's not taxable. Because what are they doing? They're trying to get a feel for how much of this exists in the hands of the American public so that we know. And this is exactly what they should be doing. I'm not saying they
Mhm.
shouldn't. Like, their
Sure.
responsibility is to maintain stability in financial markets
Mhm.
through law. So they're doing exactly what they should be doing. But to look to them for guidance on what we should do when the technology is so far from their normal medium of operation that it's almost just like, well, let's figure out ways to stabilize it, and then their application of how they eventually tax it and keep track of it will sort of follow suit.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but whether or not people can, I'm sure they're not happy about it because it's kind of a way right now to skirt around SEC regulations, and I'm sure there are people who are utilizing it for that. And obviously, that's got inherent problems. Um, But
yeah, well, the crypto community should like take all that money and start investing in lobbyists so we can have even more possibilities. And because I get really excited about the fractioning, and I think that's where we can truly empower creators, to own their content, to be protected, as well as owning their own data. And I mean, you're empowering both consumers and creators at the same time. And I see a day where a J.J. Abrams or a Christopher Nolan or a Corridor Digital can say, you know what, we're going to do Spider-Man the right way. And we're going to, really do it in a way where we don't have to worry about a small committee at a studio that's going to approve it or not. We're going to go out and do it, find an audience that wants to invest in it and make it happen. And, raise hundreds of millions and maybe make billions as a result of that. I think that's what's going to happen in the creator community. We're truly seeing the era of the artist, and I think this is the direction where things are going.
Yeah, keeping the money in the hands of the people who are the consumers of the art, to me is like, I understand why it didn't happen that way in the past. Traditional mediums and so forth, but like with the ability of,
well, it goes back to kingdoms,
right?
Central authority.
Yes, and so that's incredibly scary to central authority, for obvious reasons to them from their perspective. But from the thing is one of the things that makes. And this isn't just true for America, but I think it's especially true for America. One of the things that has allowed the sort of like health of the bounty of ideas to come out of this nation has been because of that decentralization and the decentralization. What does that do? It gives every person access at some level. Now that obviously has
levels the playing field.
Yes.
And it makes it so people can, be in control and stay in control.
Right. And so, there's no one like solution, I don't think, to like, building a better world in that sense. But I do think, at least in the artistic world, that was YouTube was a rudimentary version of that when we first started. It was a rough, like, hey, look, anybody can upload. What? Anyone can upload? You mean like me? And that was the beauty of it. And now if you can find a way to say like, look, anyone can create and then monetize, and not monetize through, but monetize to whoever is purchasing it. Man, that's beautiful stuff right there. Like it allows people to go about it in a way that hasn't been possible before. So there's definitely value there. And I'm excited to like figure out how we can fit it into the structure.
Yeah. We're really excited. And as a business, I run TubeBuddy and Ben Group.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to NFTs and like this, new wave of decentralization of content and art empowerment, I've told our data and AI teams to just, data gather. Let's see if there's ways to model this, because where we've been very successful as a business is that we've been able to predict the new pilots that are going to be the most successful. In the awesome. Last 3 years, we've been able to predict 8 out of the top 10 new TV pilots. Our AI is 25% more accurate when it comes to predicting viewership than our expert humans.
Really?
And that's a big deal because that's a sign of scale, and that's one of the reasons why we doubled in
love
size.
That. I love that about AI.
We doubled our team last year because we can now take people that have no experience to come in, leverage our AI platform, and be able to make predictions on what content's going to win versus what content is maybe going to have less of an impact. And that goes down to lower funnel metrics as well. When it comes to clicks, it's 11% more effective than humans at clicks. And then it's also much more effective as you can train it with conversion data to be able to predict which creators are going to convert. Well, we own TubeBuddy, and we're taking that same technology so creators can predict how much viewership they're going to get, how much money they're going to make, how can they get more clicks to their website, or let's say corridordigital.com, so they can better monetize and predict their monetization. Well, I look at what we've been able to do with computer vision and NLP and all the different features that we leverage or
Yeah.
tactics that we leverage when it comes to AI, and I look at NFTs. Well, us looking at unstructured data, like the actual visuals of the content and the groups of texts and the audio, that's what moves the needle forward when making predictions of engagements, so clicks or conversions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we already have the technology, but we're going to wait for things to stabilize and see, is it possible on behalf of creators to predict how successful their NFT is going to be, not only based on their size of audience and all the metadata, but also based on the actual visuals and content that they create. The technology is there to do that as well. But before we jump in and put all of our eggs in one basket, it's one of those things that we want to see stabilize.
Right.
And it's going to be data and AI that's going to make it so creators, with their not just their own content, but also with these new forms of content like NFTs, will be able to truly take out the guesswork and make predictions that help them calculate risk versus reward.
That's amazing. I mean, that is that is exactly what we've been trying to crack. And obviously AI isn't perfect at it either, but the fact that it can do it more efficiently and more quickly is an incredible tool, because that's one thing that right now we have this feature called the green light feature on the site, where people earn points through their subscription, and then they can put those into projects that we would like to make. And so it's sort of this co-voting system where we put out a project idea, and then depending on how quickly people vote on it, that'll tell us whether or not people want it. And it's also a way to engage the subscriber. But to be able to do that more effectively with AI, I think is an awesome tool. And obviously to do it across other platforms too. I mean, not just our own.
Well, 100%. And build it just, it's impossible for humans to be able to watch a video and correlate that video or find causations around that video with tens of thousands of other videos. Our brains just don't work to that magnitude.
Yeah.
We can't process that many things, but AI can literally look at a video, dissect it, and then analyze a million other videos within seconds. That can be the data to let you know how successful that video is going to be, or if there's improvements that need to be made. And so contextualization of content with impacts outside of the platform where you create that content, I believe, is the next wave of innovation in the creator economy and the creator ecosystem.
I think you're right about that, my friend. You're very right about that.
Well, no, and we could go on for hours about this, and I've taken a lot of your time here, Jake. As I mentioned, we run and owned the TubeBuddy platform where we help over 9 million creators be data driven and growing their audience and their revenue. And specifically, it's been very strong with YouTube, and we're obviously going cross platform with this. With those TubeBuddy creators, a lot of them are just getting started. A lot of them are micro creators and trying to make a living and build a career out of this. What advice would you give these TubeBuddy creators?
Well, there's two things really: consistency and niche. And that doesn't really matter the platform, but consistency, niche, and what makes it special. Those are the three questions we always ask ourselves too. So, it's hard enough to just make a video once a week or every day or whatever whatever your format is. Well, once you have that, you can't have the two other things without consistency. That's the first thing, because if you're not consistent, you can't build upon good habits and get rid of bad habits. And then niche, figure out who's originally watching your videos. Like, where are they? Why are they watching your video? Are they watching your video because they just want to see how someone changes oil on a car? Or are they watching their video? Are they watching your video for you? And know the difference. And then what makes your video special? Why? We call this an art. It's called a raison d'être, which is French for the reason to be. Like, why does it exist? And what about it makes it a better execution of that idea? than what people would otherwise have access to. So if you want to make a video about, green cups, like the one I have in my hand, what about your video is attractive to people? And why is your execution of the idea better than other people's? And those are the more intangibles. But if you have the consistency and you have the niche and you can build the audience from the niche, then you can keep people coming back, and then you can become, a source of authority on a topic. I mean, look at VFX Artists React. It's like, obviously it's our most successful show. But because we had those things in line, now we were able to get guests like Seth Rogen and let this man who's already authority on this topic come in and not only speak to it from his perspective, but help further legitimize the show in general. And, keep moving it forward and keep it fresh.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's great. That's great insight. Consistency, niche, or niche, and what makes it different, or what makes it special.
Special.
That's amazing, and I think those are three principles that everyone should try to apply to their creator careers. Jake, I hope that we get to see each other again soon. I miss playing D&D with you, Sam, and Nico. I'm so glad we've never recorded those sessions, because those would be R-rated.
Those would definitely be R-rated, yeah.
But, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your
pleasure.
friendship and all the partnership that we've had in the past. And let's definitely connect again soon. And everyone that tuned in, thank you so much. Go check out corridordigital.com. You should see the series Son of a Dungeon. It's great, as well as check out all the other Corridor Digital series and channels. And again, please like and comment and subscribe to Creative Disruption. We have been very inconsistent. We're not following any of the rules of growing our audiences, but this is one of those areas, those times where I just love to gather data and go deeper with different creators, and we'll have more coming out again soon.